our final episode of our first season. This is our academic podcast finale. Hopefully, we'll be seeing you relatively soon where we take a nice long break to let our brains stop melting from academics, and we'll meet up again to chit chat and talk shit and enjoy the time. But this is we chuchum non weektum paishuktum pinyamingwas final episode for the academic season. This is very, very exciting, and we have an extremely exciting podcast for you today. We have talked about our artist before in a different context, but we will be listening to the Dead Pioneers and talking about some of the philosophical underpinnings within the music and how it relates to pop culture. The important fact to know is that Greg Deal is the frontman of this amazing punk band. And so I'm going to give a moment for everybody to introduce themselves. I am Catherine Miahua. I am our Indigenous consultant. And I will move along next to Alicia.
Hello. You guys probably know me from the first two podcasts. Is the intro part? I finished it. Probably gonna do another one. I don't know. Depends on how I feel after I relax for a little bit. And I will give this off to Alyssa.
Hi, my name's Alyssa. I'm studying to be a conservation biologist, and I'm happy to be here. And we're gonna end strongly today, I hope.
Oh, yeah.
Hi,
Shelia?
everyone. I'm Shelia. As Alyssa pointed out, I am a psychology major, and I am officially a minor in American Indian Studies. So, look for that. Super excited to have you all here on the last leg of our journey. Definitely not the last one for the season, but more to come and more to be updated.
All right, this is super exciting. So I'm just going to start us off with the nice ability to listen to some freaking great punk music. Let me return to the chat. Be annoyed, viewers who are watching my form. I'm sorry, I'm not smart. I have to pull up the interface. So there. We're going to be playing the first song, which is Bad Indian by the Dead Pioneers, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. I may be roboting a little bit in the video, but hopefully not in voice.
My cheekbones aren't high enough. My last name isn't a sentence. I don't have enough beadwork or turquoise, and I don't speak good pidgin English, certainly not as good as Johnny Depp did in that movie that one time. And I don't care if you connect with Indian spiritualism. I could care less if you did a sweat lodge with your Caucasian spirit guide who knew an Indian once. And sure, millions of Indians died, but tell me about your feelings and cry your white tears. I'm just gonna be over here being a bad Indian.
Bad Indian.
A woman once asked me my Indian name, and I said, "It's Greg." And she was so disappointed, she was like, "No, it has to be Red Eagle or Two Rivers or Gray Skull." I said, "Yes, wait, is that for real?" No, I said, without her realizing my brief but generationally relevant He-Man joke, the kind of joke that would tell her that while Indian, I'm also having an American experience too. I finally said to her, "How about Walking Eagle?" And she said, "Yes, but is that true?" I said, "Yes, it's totally true." And I never had the heart to tell her that the only time an eagle walks is when it's too full of shit to fly. Because I'm a bad Indian. There's one time a man walked into my space and he asked me some questions about my things. I tell him. When he suddenly interrupts me, as only a white man can, with all the Euro swagger of a man whose people were so sure of their place in the universe, their place in the world, their place in the eyes of God. You speak real good for a Native American, an Indian, a savage, a pagan, a
What a good song. I fucking love that song so much, guys. I gotta tell you, when I first heard that song, it was crazy for me. Because I've talked about this before, where in middle school, I would be told, oh, you're not a res kid, you're just from the reservation. Or, oh, you're not Paula, you're just from Paula. I'm like, yeah, you're one of the good ones. You're part native, but you're not a Paula kid. You're not a res kid. And it really affected me when I was younger. And I didn't really understand that I was experiencing, this racial experience where I was being put above my peers because not only did I look white, but I acted white. And that's not because I wasn't involved in my community. It's just I was autistic and I was masking and I was able to fit within the scenarios I needed to fit within. And as I got older and realized this, it was always kind of like, well, of course, my Native American counterparts, my peers, my cousins, the tribal members, of course they're misbehaving if the first thing you think when you see what bus they get off of or where they're from is that they're going to be bad. They're going to get sick and tired of the assumptions and say, fine, fuck it. If I'm going to be bad in your eyes from the beginning, let me be bad. And hearing it put into music is honestly one of the things where it's like, whoa, what a way to take back a term. What a way to say F you to Teddy Roosevelt, who said the phrase, the only good Indian is a dead Indian. And I have a lot to say about this song in particular, but I'd like to, before I ramble forever, pass it on to someone else, see if they have any commentary on this philosophy, this idea of good Indians and bad Indians, and this dichotomous paradigm or this completely separate model of what's good and what's bad, this ideal of what is proper or not proper in the Euro-Western vision of what an Indian is.
I would love to start off so I can get everything kind of out of the way. Apologies for anybody who's listening. If I'm lisping, I have a terrible toothache and it's affecting my speech, but I'll try to make it as cohesive as I can. Greg Deal, first and foremost, amazing, talented. He is also an artist and he uses not his art, like both the canvas aspect, painting aspect, as well as his music as his form of rebellion, besides the way that he lives life. And the fact that he's able to go ahead and express exactly what he's feeling, exactly what his life is through these media is so important to have, because somebody may not have access to his art, but it's a lot easier to have access to music. That aside, I love how he completely, in his TED Talk, he mentioned the theory of blood quantum and how essentially if you're more, like if your blood essentially is a higher percentage, then you're technically considered more indigenous, more native, more Indian. Forgive me for using the word. But it's also important to note that in Catherine's case, anybody who's indigenous is indigenous. And the theory of like good Indian, bad Indian, that should not even be something that exists because the times have changed. Mm-hmm. You're not going to have people living their life as if it's the 1800s when there's so many other things to live life for. It's kind of like having people live in the past. And I feel like to some degree, that's the expectation that's been upheld with indigenous tribes is, oh, you have to still live like you're in the 1800s. And whether or not that's a subconscious effect that's happening as a result of, oh, we want to make sure what happened in the 1800s can still continue to happen. Or if it's like, oh my God, look at all the movies, all the media we've seen of this group of people within this specific time. And they want to kind of go ahead and glorify the aesthetic of it in modern day without caring about the people. And that's my 2 cents on it. I think it's something that is made as a way to keep people in the past and to, like I said, glorify and in some cases appropriate the culture and the wardrobe and the spirituality aspect of it, which was also discussed, without caring about the people. But anybody feel free to take it away.
I have something to say also to add on to that. I would like to say how imperialistic history over America has truly affected the stereotypes of how it continues to influence. As I mentioned, I keep on bringing this up in all our podcasts, in our unofficial podcast with Dr. Wildcat, and Greg Deal also mentions this in his TED Talk, how money influences the stereotype, how Dr. Wildcat, his publishers were like, well, there's nothing indigenous about this, so we're not going to really advertise this as much. Or, as Greg Deal mentioned, his art that isn't just stereotypically portraying indigenousness doesn't get sold or advertised as much either. And I believe that is a way of imperialism trying to influence and stay influencing the stereotypes that every other person that is not indigenous will see on every day, and it affects the sovereignty, the visual sovereignty and media sovereignty of if you have other people influencing with money how you are viewed.
Mm-hmm.
People not from your group will see this, and it's something that is sad, but it's true. People view things and they will automatically put that in their brain and hold that as a bias. So I would like to use an example. My great grandmother, she went to school in Cal State LA during like the late 40s, I believe. Yeah, she was born in 32. So when she went to college, people didn't know that she was Mexican at all. She was assumed to be something else. They would ask her, is she like Middle Eastern? Where's she from? Where's she like? They would assume that she was a transfer student at first. They're like, where are you transferred from? What country are you from? And even the people that were transferred from Mexico, they had a hard time understanding her because she would dress like in between, like during the I don't think Chicano movement was a thing
Not yet.
until like the Chicano style was like until the 80s and 90s. So she would just dress what was available where she lived, which was pretty American fashion. So I think these even at the time, those cowboy movies with the Mexicans versus the American cowboys saving the day from raids, and also indigenous, the stereotypical indigenous and Mexican raiders that would pillage and kill women and children, negatively affected how she was viewed. And she was just assumed not to be Mexican because she's in college. And I know it isn't exactly well, it is North American content of indigenousness, so
It's all fucking Turtle Island. I tell this to all my fucking Mexican indigenous friends. I'm like, girl, that's just the tale of Turtle Island. Some fucking arbitrary war doesn't change that. Dramatic.
A useless war too.
Seriously. But specifically, I just wanted to add on before I throw it to Alyssa. The time period you're saying that she went, you said the 40s, right?
yes, late 40s.
The crazy part is that before she went in the late 40s, LA had the Zoot Suit riots, which was where Mexican American men were getting money and being able to, dress more fashionably, and they wore zoot suits, which were extremely common in the jazz and blues scene. And it was June 8th. Was it June 8th? I don't know. But there was, I think they happened in 1943 from June 3rd to 8th. It was, I'm reading Wikipedia right now because it just randomly was brought up. It was in Los Angeles, California, involving American servicemen stationed in Southern California and young Latino and Mexican American city residents. It was a huge race-related riot, and it was honestly people who were in these zoot suits, these white Angelinos, attacked and stripped children and youth who wore these zoot suits and beat them because they considered these outfits to be unpatriotic during World War II because there was so much fabric in them. And it's this, honestly, like, a lot of people don't talk about it, but the zoot suiters became inspirational later on in the Chicano movement. And it's just, it's really fascinating you bring up the time period that your grandma was in that area, because this is after zoot suits were literally banned and like made illegal for people to wear. And it's just such a fascinating concept that these people finally getting enough money to take back power and dress right in their eyes and dress nice and be able to have this fashion were literally attacked, and some of them were even killed. And it's not just Mexican Americans. I mean, Mexican Americans were the most targeted in LA, in the specific area, but African American and Filipino American young adults who were also part of this zoot suit idea were hurt. And it's, you bring that up in such a perfect like segue to about pop culture, really, even though this is in the past, this visual nature of what's good and what's bad. It's like literally in that scenario, Mexicans were the bad Indians for not being patriotic enough and wearing tight suits. Yeah, that's, I just had to add that in because it's freaking ridiculous. Because it's like 11 sailors got off a bus in Main Street and then they just started freaking fighting young Mexican American men because they were wearing these suits.
Yeah, there was
Sounds
also
chaotic.
building tensions because the military used to, a lot of your American white men would harass the women that lived in that area as well. So there was growing tension in that until that eventually happened. And
It's fucking ridiculous.
I think it's unpatriotic that sailors are hitting other people in the States, but that's just me though. I don't know if everybody else feels the same.
Yeah, the next time they showed up, instead of 11, there was 200 sailors that drove in by taxi to clean up Main Street.
Ew. Cleaning up, that is such a terrible and evil term to use
I know.
for just beating up anyone who's not white.
Ah, yes. The world we live in.
Yeah.
All right, would you like to
All
talk
right.
about bad Indians?
I do. Yes, please. I'd like to go back to what Shelia was talking about a bit and how the aesthetics of the 1800s and how that relates to Native Americans was sort of, would you say, like idealized or like
The
romanticized, I guess,
fictional
because that kind of
savage.
ties into the limitations of temporal concepts of time, I think, and going back to God is Red, and how time, the way that it is structured when you relate it to philosophy, you know what? It's the idea that that aesthetic, you have to be a good Indian and you have to fit that aesthetic in order to be considered a good Indian. Whereas what Greg Gill was talking about in his song Bad Indian, he doesn't have a cool native name. He doesn't
What's your
fit
Indian name?
the all the stereotypes in media.
It's
Yeah.
Greg.
Walking Eagle because it's full of shit. I love that. That was so funny. Those final lines in that song really hit hard for me and like kind of give me chills. That the Western idea that has historically been in place in our country of the only good Indian is a dead Indian. That really, really painful, disgusting idea. And it's going back to what you were saying, Catherine, how Greg Deal kind of reclaims the term bad Indian and connects it to his identity. And thank you for connecting it to your own identity. That was really powerful. I'm not native, but sometimes I feel like I'm biracial. Sometimes I feel like, oh, I'm not Chinese enough to call myself Chinese. I only feel comfortable like calling myself Asian sometimes if I'm around my Asian relatives, which is disrespectful to myself, I will say. I've had to come to terms with it over the course of my life. And so, in a way, I do connect to this song um, in my own way.
Honestly, I love that. And I think it's so important for all people that come from unique backgrounds and heritages to look into these cultures because, I feel so nerdy when I get excited at the idea of like you being part Chinese because I'm like, I have so much study that I've randomly done on fashion from ancient times and certain like scientific and medicinal movements. And it's like, it's one of those things where I feel so sad knowing you mentioned the reason your family stopped speaking the language was so they didn't get put in concentration camps during the Japanese internment. And it's like, you're disconnected from this one of the most intricate, complex, amazingly like scientific and like, oh my God, some of the freaking stories and the lore and the fashion is Flavie Bottom abandoned us. It's fine. We'll come back to him. it's it's something that's really hard not to like. I feel so much empathy for all people who are disconnected from their culture because it's a very similar aspect in the indigenous philosophy in all racial aspects. If you're not white, it's not right. And the good Indian, bad Indian paradigm that I kind of have been thinking about in my head. So I think in one of my questions, which I'm not going to bring up, I just want to bring up part of what I said, is that there is this idea of the good Indian, bad Indian paradigm. And then there's this model where there's the good Indian model in the Euro-Western sense and the bad Indian model in this Euro-Western sense. And then there's Greg Deal's bad Indian. And just to summarize like what I know, it's like there is a good Indian, which is like your medicine man or your Tonto or your mysterious Indian princess who's swept away by the white hero and becomes civilized. And then there's your bad Indians, which is your powerful woman who's a warrior, the squaw, quote unquote. Then there's your bad Indian, your war chief that's trying to take women and, take these white women from their homes. We look back into it. One of my professors at Cal State San Marcos, his like several great grandmothers was a white woman who was kidnapped. She wanted to go back to the Comanche so bad when her white family found her again. She was Comanche. She became Comanche. And the way she was treated, women were dead once they were married. Legally, you had no rights as a married woman. And I consider this in so many factors of like this bad Indian, this evil, face eating, scalping. They steal hearts. They are savages. They're hunter gatherers that don't know how to farm. And it's such a ridiculous concept when you actually know a little bit of science about it and a little bit of history. Because a real bad Indian, talking in Greg Deal's philosophical sense, is simply an Indian who does not conform to the mythical Indian, the mythical savage, this hair in the wind, long braid, John Redcorn from King of the Hill, who's a healer. It's so funny to me because I've had my moments in life where I felt not Indian enough. It took me a long time to be comfortable with being light skinned. I pass as white, and the darkest I get is an Italian. You know what I mean? And the joke we make is like, oh, you went to the sun, you could pass as Italian. But in reality, I like to think now that Creator gave me this skin, so I had the privilege to walk in front of my younger cousins who won't be listened to walk in front of my honorary nieces who have this dark skin that people will look at them like predators to prey, ready to snap and eat. And, I am a bad Indian. I mean, I have beadwork. I do beadwork. I don't own enough turquoise. I don't have any moccasins. I don't live in a teepee. I live in a freaking trailer house on the reservation. But right now in my front yard, I've got nettle medicine drying. I literally was just this weekend at our cultural gathering wearing a ribbon skirt. But for some people, I'm still not Indian enough. And I'm okay with that. I don't want to be a good Indian. I don't want to fit your fucking fake ass Pocahontas stereotype. I am not Sacagawea. I am me. Those women are great. Pocahontas' real name was Mataoka when she became an adult. She was a beloved woman. She died at 21 years old in England away from home, named Rebecca. You know, I consider these things. And in this philosophical idea of being a bad Indian or being a bad Mexican or being a bad Black or being a bad anything, it's not up to this white Anglo-Saxon Protestant culture that fetishizes this mythical savage to philosophically orient what we are supposed to be ontologically. Like, there is no way to tell us how we're supposed to exist. Like, the whole ontological idea behind our existence, the way of being, the way of existing for an Indian is so skewed by fucking movies. And honestly, I'm fucking exhausted, which I feel like is a really great segue
You're tired.
into our next song, which I'm going to have to pull up because Flavibot abandoned us.
But
He has to clock back in. Give him a minute.
I know, let me
Catherine, while you're
please talk.
pulling that up, I would just love to say something super quickly. It's in these situations how much our brains betray us. Our brains find comfort in familiarity and pattern, and something that I'm studying as a psychology major, specifically how much influence obviously our brains have over us, but also what we think is the norm. And I think all of us included, we've seen so many different forms of media that have portrayed, Indigenous people and Indigenous culture in those specific regards, that it sometimes could be not even like through the form of ill intent. It's like, wait, I thought this is literally how it is.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that in itself, that lack of not knowledge, but that lack of familiarity and that lack of being able to see like what modern day Indigenous people are like, what that true like Indigenous experience is what's been sabotaging so many people into still thinking like, oh, the fancy long names as a sentence, or like medicine man, or like I use sage, and like all of that stuff is what's been sabotaging and have had this choke hold and like this chain on Indigenous tribes and people for the longest amount of time, because there really isn't that like aspect of awareness. And I think that's why I appreciate Greg Deal so much, because he is using his voice, he's using his talents, he's using literally every single method he can to show Indigenous people as they truly are.
Fuck yeah. Let me get this Flavibot back up.
Indian, maybe even
Yeah.
a bad Indian.
I love the song. It's gonna play for a couple seconds. There we go. Oh, wait, Mythical Cowboy's not tired next. Oops. Whatever. My segue was wrong.
I think Mythical Cowboys isn't a bad place to start, considering the media we were
That's
talking about
true.
it.
Oh.
John Wayne, where you at? You got your cowboy hat? You hate in your heart? It's been black from the very start. You are no hero. You're a milquetoast zero. I heard you have no teeth. John Wayne, what's your beef? Fake ass cowboy, overcompensating old boy. John Wayne plays SS. Picture tucked in your little cowboy vest. Best cowboy that never existed. White narrative gets it twisted. I wanna punch you close-fisted. Tear down your silver screen of lies.
Sorry. I get excited.
brain, can't let go. Fake respect for your indigenous foes. Romantic with a capital R. A grave robber with a thirst for war. So tired of your devotion to the myth. There's no nobility, just murder and theft. Settler fantasy, it's a tapestry of lies and genocide. You profit off the murder of a way of life that you'll never find. Best cowboy that ever existed, white narrative gets it twisted. I wanna punch you, close-fisted, tear down your silver screen of lies.
Guys.
I love that song.
Oh, wait, no. Let me pull up the chat.
Stop!
America's a pyramid scheme, and you ain't at the top.
Ah! Shut up. We love you. You're next. You're next. Calm down. Okay.
That's a little teaser.
Oh, guys, I love this song so much. I
Oh, I love it too.
hate John Wayne so much, you guys.
When I was writing this question, I was like, Catherine's gonna pop off. I'm like, Catherine's literally like, this is the question that's gonna keep this podcast going. But as I like semi pointed out, this was the question that I wanted to go ahead and discuss in our podcast, and it revolves around the word paradox. So, paradox is defined essentially as a contradictory statement that tends to be true. And the paradox that I argue, and I'm sure all of us argue as well, is that actors like John Wayne and Kevin Costner use Indigenous people and their culture as a way to perpetuate the lesser and lower Indigenous tribe that succeeds due to the white cowboy narrative. They did this as a way to move their career forward and to continue perpetuating the stereotype that Indigenous people do not have a way of life and have never had a way of life without the white savior complex and the white savior roles to this day as well. Specifically, how does the Dead Pioneers song Mythical Cowboys allude to this? And how is it seen in any of John Wayne and Kevin Costner's movies and TV shows?
I want to go last because I'm going to talk too much. You guys need to go first.
Okay, I will go first because I love that question so much. And I think it alludes to it because he calls him a fake cowboy. And I think this is specifically, I'm sorry, I want to go also to my question that is mixed within Alyssa's, but I want to discuss how this ties in to Euro West society. Basically, having loving temporal influence over spatial because it controls history. Basically, it controls how history is written, and basically, he's saying this that John Wayne Gacy sucks eggs. I will not cuss. I'll say sucks eggs. And how these people that portrayed cowboys throughout, who was in the early mid 20th century, I believe. When was it? Like the mid 20th century. Anyways, these actors that would portray what was it? I would say like on a Greek level of, oh, this hero is gonna save the day. It's like, well, these horrible savages, we're saving you guys from this. We will protect you from these people. When I think I would like to add how history in movies is, especially during these times, was horribly inaccurate. I would like to bring up rancheros. Like, because cowboys were basically farmhands, like, originally. And a lot of Mexicans that lived in California and Texas actually were ranch hands. And other people, besides white people, because usually they would give non-white people lower wages. So these were the actual people that were actually helping on the farms. People that were being paid less, treated horribly. And basically, but in these movies, they show white people that were doing this, and they like to they like to add this historical, not historical, hero complex to
The
this
white
and make it
savior,
seem
the white knight. Ugh.
when these actual people were actually a lot of them were not white people. They were people that were getting paid shit and treated like, I could.
You're allowed
We're
to
treated
cuss.
like,
It's the Rage podcast.
We've been swearing so much.
I think YouTube tried to take down our channel because of
They
that.
can fucking
They
suck
treated
my
people
ass.
horribly. When this was not the truth, and it basically, the Euro West basically took over this and basically took historical sovereignty for everybody for themselves and portrayed it that way.
Alyssa, you need to go first.
All right. Yes, absolutely, Alicia. All that you're saying about the white savior complex, the cowboy is the one that is morally correct. Going back to the song, the only good Indian is a dead Indian, and the way that this has just negatively impacted everyone in American culture, Native people and non-Native people alike. Seeing these views expressed on our silver screen of lies, as Greg Deal says, has wide reaching effects to everyone in our culture. I was looking into the American Psychology Association, like looked into how even just racist mascots negatively impact Native youth and how it lowers self-esteem, lowers your mental image, and lowers your love for your culture. Which there should be a lot of love for Native culture. It's so diverse and amazing, and there's so many practices that had to be squashed because of the influence of Euro-Western colonialism and capitalism, dude. The fact that we live in a society where you need to make money in order to be seen as successful is really, really terrible. Growth has to be unlimited. You have to be making an exponential amount of money every year. It's a society that is going to crumble. Like the foundations of our society deemed to make money, it is so weak. And we are going to experience the collapse of society very soon if it doesn't stop.
I would love to answer this and then
Go.
give it off to my beloved Catherine because I know you're so ready. But essentially, the first example that popped into my head when I was writing this question was Kevin Costner's movie Dances with Wolves. First off, I love Catherine's reaction right now. The entire premise of the movie is regarding a white savior. And I think John Wayne had a very similar movie as well, where Kevin Costner's character had to go ahead and essentially provide guns and like other resources for the indigenous people to be able to protect themselves and take care of themselves. Keep in mind, these people have been doing completely fine for hundreds of years,
I've been trading
and
guns
generations.
with
But
the
I don't know
French
anything.
for longer than the fuck.
I don't know anything. What do I know? But besides that, I was thinking, I'm like, Yellowstone existed as well. Once again, Kevin Costner, and it was going to the fact once again where he's in a slightly different role, but he's still in a position where he has control to some degree over the indigenous people that had control of the land that he's living on and farming on and using. And so he directly has to collaborate with them. And then there's still very many moments where he's like, I'm not giving you your land back. Like, deal with it. Like, this is it. And I particularly loved how in Mythical Cowboys, Greg Deal says, besides in a lot of the bleep liar in a cowboy vest, he says, you suffer for your art, stealing stories and stabbing hearts. Colonial brain can't let it go. Fake respect for your indigenous foes. So regarding that, he once again, it's like you even more so perpetuating the fact that he's used Kevin Costner and John Wayne are using these stories, they're using these people to go ahead and get themselves set up, and they're claiming we have respect, we work with these people. We're showcasing their lives in these movies that they may not have had access to before. We're inviting them to play these roles of them on the silver screen. And yet, who's the one who's getting their name known? Who's the one who's getting everything set up for them? These movies, these shows are perpetuating Catherine's amazing good Indian, bad Indian paradigm. And it's making sure it's keeping people in place. It's holding people in place, and it's not letting history change. But besides that, I have said all that I can say. Catherine, you're pointing a plastic knife at me. Would you like to continue?
No, Alyssa,
Wait, Alyssa, did you
go.
have something to say as well?
I just wanted to check in on time so that we are all mentally clear on that.
I don't know how
Let's
long
see.
we've been recording.
Because
Oh, you guys are cutting
I
out.
can't hear you.
Yeah, Alyssa, we couldn't hear you.
can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, how are we doing on time?
Not great.
Like we're too long?
I was worried about that.
We're at 42 minutes.
And it's a final. We're allowed to be long. They can deal with our 2 freaking hour long podcasts.
Put the plastic knife closer. You will deal with it.
I mean,
Oh, we're gonna
fuck.
get our video taken down.
It's,
Oh, if we
it's
weren't
plastic.
being
It's
demonetized, we're
plastic.
definitely being
It's a butter
demonetized.
knife. It's fine. It's a butter knife.
Okay, Catherine, take it away.
John Wayne is a fucking Nazi. And Kevin Costner can suck my metaphorical dick. Fuck both of these fake ass cowboys who want to perpetuate a history that did not even exist. I am so sick and tired of these fucking fake ass white boy cowboys who would not have been fucking cowboys. They would have had much more look, when I was on my phone, I literally just wanted to bring up something. This is a
Yep,
Chinese
the
cowboy.
rancheros.
They were extremely common in California because who would have guessed how many fucking Chinese people existed when the fucking Chinese Exclusion Act literally was here? Let me tell you how fucking obnoxious. I have a love-hate relationship with Yellowstone because I want Beth to punch me in the face for fun. Because she's amazing. I love her as a character, okay? Do I hate a lot of the really, really white savior, oh my god, we sold back the land. I do like that the land gets sold back eventually. It's fucking very settler fantasy-ish. But it happens after John Dutton, Kevin Costner, gets kicked out of the show, so his character's killed off. And
Oh, that's what happened?
yeah, he had production.
I never saw it. I never finished it.
Production disputes. Fuck that dude. Fuck him. Also, the fact that their main indigenous female character is not even fucking indigenous. There's no proof of her being indigenous. She claims indigeneity, but her parents aren't indigenous. It's really, really, really hard not to want to throw my freaking hands through the screen when I want to believe she's indigenous because she looks indigenous. But that's the goddamn problem. They wanted her because she can play a fucking Pocahontas in real life so well. She pulls off that beautiful native look where she walks. No! It pisses me off that a lot. I make a joke often that as Californians, we need to take the ye back from the ha, and that the South has appropriated our culture as cowboys. And it's just, I love that you brought up rancheros because that's honestly something I've talked about for so long that it's like, yeah, your fucking woven straw cowboy hats and your felted cowboy hats, that was not a white people thing. Like, this was not the fringe. the fringe that's used on cowboy western coats and indigenous clothing, you know, it was invented by indigenous people to wick away water so it would stay dry. It was functional indigenous technology. You know, I think about these inaccuracies in these fake Western ideals where they want to romanticize, and the real history behind this comes from the Manifest Destiny philosophy, this idea that God gifted them this golden expanse to go forward, to go west into this wild, savage wilderness, when it's not a wild, savage wilderness. Yeah, it's a desert. Deserts are fucking hard to live in. But the indigenous people who are in these places know the cycles. They know that this land is not, it is harsh, yeah, but there's life just an inch under the surface. I'm gonna have to quote this later eventually, but in Mary Austin's Land a Little Rain, she talks about Death Valley and how tragic it is that people died often feet away from where plants are storing underground water supplies. And I think about these places where people go, oh, this is a fucking desolate desert. And look at these poor savages traveling like nomads. No shit, they're traveling. It's too hot to be in the desert at this time period. And I think about it in this weird fucking. I'm cursing so much right now because I have no choice but to. It's like, it's such a fucked up way to perceive our reality. It is entirely from this Euro-Western colonialist, oh, that's cool, let me take it and let me make it my own. When there is almost nothing, the only thing that's accurate about John Wayne in any of his films is how evil he is in The Searchers. When he plays giddily the evil character in The Searchers, he is truly himself, is how I feel. Mind you, this man's extremely anti-Black commentary came out to the point that there are many universities being like, oh shit, we gotta remove this exhibit, he's that racist. And this man literally tried to kill Sashim Littlefeather at the whatever fucking Emmys, Golden Globe, I don't fucking remember.
I think it was the
Academy Awards.
Oscars.
The Oscars, thank you.
Yeah.
At the Academy Awards, she went up to accept for Marlon Brando, for The Godfather, I believe. And 5 to 6 men had to hold him back from beating the shit out of her. I think about this and this mythical hero we have of John Wayne. And it's so fucking true. He is a goddamn Nazi. And I know people be like, Nazis from Germany, no, fuck that. He's a Nazi. And he deserves to be punched in the goddamn face. And his movies, some of them are great. And a lot of indigenous people love these John Wayne films and see him as a hero. And the same with Kevin Costner. He's gone to places and been honored. And that's because there is a really sad Western paradigm that's been shifted to be like, oh my God, any representation of us is good. Anything being told about us to let us be exist, that's not enough. Bad representation is not enough. Any representation isn't good This is not publicity. We don't work in PR. Not every single bit of publicity is good. And on the idea of mythical cowboys and just this philosophical quandary, we have to kind of take in this history that we've had created for us. The cowboys and the Indians. There are no cowboys in the sense of the Western film. They are all an American myth written into romance novels, literally meant to entice people to travel westward. They are a propaganda scheme. The real cowboys were literally the Chinese, the Black, the Mexican people working, just as was stated by Alicia. This is the real history. Sure, I'm sure there were some really poor Irish people who became cowboys. I'm sure that there were some mixed people that became cowboys. And I know that there were white cowboys. But the trend was picked up on after the indigenous and immigrant folk had already had to take these things in to keep themselves safe and secure while they work. And to end my rant, the truth is that there is no cowboy except for the indigenous cowboy, except for the Chinese cowboy, except for the people who take this modern ideal of being a cowboy and pull it into their own existence and play dress up. Being a cowboy is being a character. It's not a way of life. I'm sure if you go up to somewhere in Montana where you have actual ranchers that wear hats, they could call themselves cowboys. Sure. I'll give it to that. That's a modern cowboy. Whatever. But these mythical, heroic, false narratives that are being spread through the media are part of this epistemological genocide, this destruction, this annihilation, this complete and utter desecration of the way of knowing the truth about Indigenous history, the way of knowing the truth of America as a whole. And I've ranted long enough on this one song. So I'm going to end it on that and try and pull up the music again. You were right, Shelia. I did rant as fucking hell on that one.
And I knew you would. And I knew we would pop off on this question.
It's one of my favorite songs from the. I love the guitar. I love the lyrics.
Doesn't it just make you want to go? Yeah, sorry, headbanging.
Also, Alicia, I don't know if you did this intentionally, but if you did it intentionally, I love you for it. You called John Wayne Gacy, who is a serial killer.
I was gonna say.
He was named after John Wayne, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, awesome! But no, literally, I just went and I saw Alyssa doing the same thing. I'm like, okay, she heard it too. It wasn't just me.
That's so fun.
You see it. I love you.
No, it was fantastic. I was like, no, this is fitting. Like, we have to.
Happy accident.
Well, we're talking about the intention of names. Let's talk about the intention of names.
Indian.
Skip.
Maybe even a.
Skip.
Well,
I can pause. The next song is probably how we all feel in this final season, which is fucking tired.
America's a pyramid scheme, and you ain't at the top. Your demonization of those different than you is not just a cottage industry in America, but an honest-to-goodness American value. The foundation of this country is rooted in slavery and genocide, born in the bosom of colonialism. Go! America acts like its original inhabitants are foreigners in their own lands. Don't be scared about learning the whole history. It's not gonna hurt you. Capitalism can only exist if there's a poor class. There are hostiles on the homelands of indigenous people. This structure is a rigged game that breeds racism, homophobia, transphobia, classism, and ableism. And it all makes me so very tired.
Fucking so good. So good.
So good.
Who wrote their question about this song again?
It was Alyssa.
Alyssa, your beautiful question.
I mean, that song is just fantastic. I want to just bring up a quote from Silco in the foreword of God is Red. Um, he writes, Vine explains how Christianity is the root cause of the great weakness of the United States, the inability to respect or to tolerate those who are different. This song definitely emphasizes that and how it all ties into capitalism. I will say every day I look on the news and I see new reports of trans women getting attacked,
Mm-hmm.
of queer people being beaten, of queer children killing themselves. And I'm so grateful to Deal for calling out issues that affect Native people and non-Native people. Queer people are really struggling during this time. I know that Catherine and I identify as queer, so uh, this song means a lot to me. And the work that Greg Deal does means a lot to me also, and the education that he's doing. And this also goes back to what we talked about in one of our first podcasts. When we have knowledge, it is our responsibility to share that knowledge as we go about our lives.
I want to pop in really quick because I think literally Greg Deal's song in this is like talking about the idea we talked about in the past about story, and Professor telling us that it's our responsibility once we hear these stories. We are now responsible. And I feel like Tired really brings that up in its way. And in its most simple, philosophical, existential form, I feel like the world is tired. I feel like like Euro-Western philosophy and this idea of progress is a tired old dog that's been beat to the point that it's crawling along the ground, so desperate to continue claiming new territory by pissing all over that we can't like it's so sad. I don't want to say put the old dog down, but like you've beat it bloody and it's still like going. We need to live in an existence where we don't have such a toxic, exhausting perception of life. It must be so exhausting to hate people that much. Like, how can you not be so tired being such a bad person? You know what I mean? And I bring this up in not in like the Euro Western sense of what's bad. All of these things that are brought up are so anti what America as this concept preaches. We preach unity and equality and justice and liberty for all, but where the fuck is it? I don't see it anywhere. I see it as this false banner because it's not. It's liberty and justice and money for the fucking white Anglo-Saxon Protestants who have made it through heritage to be fucking billionaires. It's a really, really sad reality to live in where you have to orient yourself to choose if you're going to be a good person or if you're going to survive. And that kind of philosophically puts us in this area where are there any people in the lower class who can exist as what a Euro-Western person considers good? Are there any people of color or any people of queerness that can be good and wealthy and stable members of this quote unquote society that is so enviable? And that's where I leave it in that sense to the answer of your question. I feel like the imperialist value that's been placed upon our country has just pulled us into a spiral of darkness, and it's everywhere.
I would love to add on to that if I could. I love how Deal mentions the only reason why capitalism exists is because there's poor people.
Yep.
And I love that. And I think it's important to look at statistics and to look at facts and to realize that most, if not all, of the poor people, the lower class, even the middle class at this point,
Which is just poor.
are people of color.
Or disabled people,
People of color.
or queer people. And the white lower class almost
Absolutely.
always has a high level of disability or were originally considered Irish or Polish, or oh, you're not you're not from the Protestant church we like. It's yeah, continue.
No, I love that. But these systems are specifically set up, and capitalism specifically is set up in a way to keep the poor poorer and to keep the rich richer.
Mm-hmm.
And now more than ever, we are seeing the results of that. And until something fundamentally changes, and by fundamentally, I mean capitalism crumbling down to whence it never existed, and the very idea and the concept of it scrapped and thrown into the garbage dump, which is thrown into a garbage heap and never pulled out, nothing is ever going to change. And as a concept, it's, like I mentioned, always going to keep people where they originally started off, but now more than ever, it's making it more difficult to crawl out of.
Yep.
I can remember on my own, like I was sharing this with my family a couple days ago. I remember when I first got hired at the company I worked at, I was 19. I had the same bills. I had everything the same. Nothing has changed throughout the years. The wage that I was making is much less than what I make now, but I was able to comfortably take care of all myself, my expenses, and put money away for
Not
savings.
no more.
And now I make much more, and I am having difficulty to do so. And I think it really sets the precedent of, if my lifestyle didn't change, what changed? If I got additional money, what made it change? And being able to have that whole where you're not able to even escape no matter how hard you work. It's always like, oh, you can always work harder. You can always do more. You can always like pull more overtime or pick up more shifts and get more money and get yourself out of there. No. More than ever. If you're lower class, you're staying lower class. If you're middle class, you're staying middle class, which I can argue and say that it doesn't exist anymore, but that's a separate conversation. And if you're upper class, guess what? You're in the top 1% of the country. You're staying upper class. And it's exhausting as a person who's going through it. And it's even more exhausting to see people going through it and to know that there's no way out from it, with the exception of, like I said, capitalism crumbling, which, with the way our country is run, with the very foundation of capitalism, I don't think that will change anytime soon. Alicia, you ready?
Yes, I would like to add on to that by saying, yes, it's actually pretty intriguing that I learned this last summer, actually, the grasp for this, but the gap between the increasement of wealth for the top 1%, top 10% has grown exponentially. It's like about like, I don't want to say the exact percentage, but it's grown way more than the what is it, the wage of the lower half, the lower 50%. And it's, I believe that it was only like, I remember the increasement of wealth for the lower 50%, and it was only like, it was under 10%. I remember that for sure. I was like, wow. Well, the upper 10% and above were making big increases to their wealth. And it makes me think about, I'm interjecting my question into here again. I'm sorry, guys. Here's one of my questions that I will kind of answer is how imperialism, I believe that imperialism basically just evolved into capitalism. And it's just a new form of imperialism that just hides behind a pretty better, like, it's, oh, well, we're no longer taking over, destroying land for our own amusement and wealth. We're doing this. We don't do that anymore, but we will keep the people that benefited from collecting wealth, destroying the land, and we'll keep them on the top. Well, we'll keep those people that suffered. We'll keep them in that suffering state.
Oh my god.
And we're not doing the stuff that we did to them before, but we'll keep them from succeeding. we'll make sure that we stay successful. We will put in place these things that will prevent economic improvement for other people. I just think it's an evolution.
I agree. 100% agree.
I love that.
And I'll save the Christianity for the last song
Yeah.
because I have a lot to say about it.
Do we want to move to the next song? Yeah? All right.
I think we're ready.
If it'd start.
Stupid fucking white man.
Oh, yeah, it's a good song.
Spirit animal, you sound obscene. Spirit cannibal, remain unseen. A stolen home on stolen land. A foundation built on sand. He hates me, I like that. Take up your keyboard combat. I shout, you shout back. Big hands give a big old smack. Fight a man with nothing to lose. Fight a man who misconstrues. History known, history unknown. Robbing us like Lily Gladstone. Christian heathens, Christian demons. Take some more. We are at war. Consumption City, we die in committees. Apologize before you say please. Pride cuts you at the knees. Fight a man with nothing to lose. Fight a man who misconstrues. Woo! You know who you are. You culture vulture, fake ass Indians. Trying to take and benefit off our culture. Our ceremonies, burning sage, benevolent cultural appropriation, honor by stealing, some new age settler colonial thievery. Get your own culture. Spirit animal, you're not that slick. Spirit cannibal, you settler prick. A stolen home on stolen land. A foundation built on sand. Burning sage 'cause you think we do. I think you just had a breakthrough. But your gain shouldn't be my loss. Your gain shouldn't be my cause. Fight a man with nothing to lose. Fight a man who misconstrues.
Fucking love that song. I love all of his music, okay?
He's so good.
All right. I think, Alyssa, this is your question. And who else wrote about this one?
Well, I think Alicia wanted to
Oh, Alicia.
start. 'Cause
Oh, I was actually I thought, oh no. Yeah, the last song.
Okay.
The last song.
Hold on. I'm reading all the questions. Just
Are we okay with turning in like a 2-hour podcast?
I am 100% okay with this. We're gonna get such a high grade on our final. She didn't give us a time limit. Unless you just want to move to the next song and listen to the next song as well and use both of them. But I have a lot to say about Post American. We could probably bring both in though if we wanted to.
It doesn't matter to me. I'm
It
okay
doesn't
with that.
matter.
Okay.
My
I might have to leave a bit early then.
That's
because-
fine. I'll just play the next song and then we'll talk about My Spirit Animal, 8 Year Spirit Animal, and Post American. So I'm going to resume the music.
Celebrate white independence, great. All the white folks get a clean slate. Freedom sold as the newest elixir. American white, not an ethnic mixer. A country built on genocide. Wrestle with the facts and don't run and hide. Sets a tone for us countrywide. Blind nationalism, American pride. Fuck you in your little patriot circle. Fuck your capitalist infomercial. Your multi-level marketing at best. Imperialist cult, hand on your breast. Tax pay for war while we succumb. Just to make middle-class slums. Criminalize being broke. Yeah, we chalk it up to being woke. America is so star-spangled awesome. A nice place where the empire blossoms. Killing natives, built on slave labor too. When you bleed, you bleed red, white, and blue. Bougie politicians with open hands, giant toddlers with demands. Check your notes, what's the result? Your people are in a fascist cult. Fed hopes in the American dream, fed equality and star-spangled themes. We are a nation of death and the gun. We're all nearly post-American.
No,
Continue to walk like
shut up. Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna read my question, and we can bring in the spirit animal song as well. So I'm actually gonna read parts of my first question and my third question. But I wrote, the idea of the American Indian as a mythical, dangerous, fascinating, or vanishing creature more than a person is a huge part of the American pop culture and propaganda sphere. Since the early days of indigenous representation, wait, this is the bad Indian one. Oops, never mind. Hold on. That's a good question. Not the one we're talking about. Sorry. Question 2. The topic of post-colonial theory, there we go, is thrown around a lot in academic spaces. By definition, post means after something. A colonial state would be land that's under control of the colonizer. If America still exists under the control of colonial systems, to think post-colonial would be impossible in the American reality. Before America can come to a post-colonial society, they must become post-American. The idea of American excellence and Americanism has to be dismantled and exposed as part of the epistemological genocide of the American Indian. In terms of epistemological genocide, we're speaking on the destruction of the various indigenous ways of knowing as a whole. Within the Dead Pioneers Post-American album, the same titled song expresses a variety of American ideals and concepts. The song ends with a series of impactful lines. Your people are in a fascist cult, fed hopes in the American dream, fed equality, and star-spangled themes. We are a nation of death and the gun. We are all merely post-American. Greg Deal expresses this idea of merely being post-American. Conceptually, this idea allows the listener to play with the very concept of what it means to be post-American. What does it mean? And what does it apply for this American myth? And to pull a little bit from the third question, if you're playing with the concepts from post-American, bad Indian, let's also talk about My Spirit Animal Ate Your Spirit Animal. You create a really, really modern concept of what being an Indian is and what being a bad Indian is. And if we're going to strip away the inaccurate ontological assumptions of Indianness, aka strip away the stereotypical belief of how an Indian must act or be, what are we faced with? What are we looking at? And I know I said a lot of words, and I just want to think about pop culture and reality and the music pertaining to these really high level concepts of what philosophically post-Americanism, being a bad Indian is, and some of the other concepts of this cultural vulture aspect that we hear about in My Spirit Animal Ate Your Spirit Animal.
I would like to go. I would just like to say that I think the idea of post-American is supposed to, I don't know, based off what I've listened to and what I interpreted, is that it's supposed to be this post-imperialistic past this imperialism, past the colonialism, and now we're kind of, but it's not really past that. It's never going to be past that. It's a part of America. It's built upon that. A lot of hi Kitty. Sorry about that. Anyways, so I think that even though that post-America, which is supposed to mean post-colonial America, even though it will still always have that. It will always have that stereotypes that make people viewed a certain way. It will always have the these taking of culture that imperialism always was. They used to just take what they wanted from land, take what they wanted from the people, and just benefit from it. And it's still there is no post America. There will always be. Anyways, yeah, I'll just cut it short by saying that. Oh, excuse the dog. Anyways, that there will always be colonial actions that will happen in America until there's actions to dismantle it. There will never be anything. So I just think that's what it's saying, that there will always be those actions and the agenda of colonialism.
I just want to pop in real fast before I pass it on to you guys to just add in, when I was writing my essay for fun, because I'm a nerd, I really genuinely, I think I wrote down, what I wrote down was, to me, being post-American would oddly fulfill more false American ideals than the American state we live in currently. If we are to be post-American, it's got to shatter this idea of American excellence and destroy or start destroying the greater
The
American.
ghost in the graveyard of our
That was
1,000-year
so rude of Flaviobot, aka me accidentally touching Flaviobot. But I agree with what you're saying about we can't exist in a post-American state if America exists. But I think, unlike being able to actually engage in post-colonial theory, we might be able to engage, oh my god, a baby, in post-American theory. We might be able to play with a concept where we're America beyond America, where we're not just thinking about America as, oh, we live in the United States. Think about what we want America to be after America. Think about post-American theory as what will be after it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I'm so sorry. I need to head out. I'm sorry. I know I've been watching the time a lot, but yeah, I thank you guys so much.
You
for,
definitely participated
being an
in
amazing
our
group.
final enough.
Thank you. I love you guys. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for watching.
Bye-bye.
Continue for me.
And now there was 3. This is okay. We have lost our environment, our ecological I can't remember what the title was.
Environmental.
Yeah, environmental investigator or something. Expert, something. I don't know. We're good. We're going to continue until we finish. So, Shelia, do you want to talk a little bit about the idea of post-American?
Oh, I would love to. I just thought you weren't finished. But yes. So I think we talked about it also a lot throughout the other questions that we answered. How the foundation of colonialism has now created capitalism. Alicia, I love how you pointed that out. I think that was such an amazing statement to point out how it just kind of evolved into a different concept, but it's still based off of the foundation of colonialism. And I know Catherine and I discussed how it's still set in place to keep people where they're at. And I think even more so, the way post-American is phrasing everything and what we were talking about regarding how Indigenous people are viewed and the John Wayne effect and all of that. It's all set in place by a standard that's created that in order to be this, you have to look like this, you have to act like this, you have to be this. And I think all the different aspects that we were discussing, not disgusting, even though it is disgusting.
Good for you.
All those that we were discussing, yeah, is setting forth this standard and like this little box that we all have to conform to and stay in order to not cause trouble or to speak up or to do anything, in order to keep the peace and maintain it for what we've been taught. And we have to realize that what we've been taught is not the correct thing. And we have to realize that the moment we are able to go ahead and break out of that box, we're able to go ahead and start asking these questions, we're able to go ahead and not conform. It's, in my opinion, the true meaning of America, where everybody can be who they want to be and everybody is able to be who they are, and not have to conform to the standard of what's been set forth by a bunch of people who have no idea what it means to be that. Short and sweet.
I agree, 100%. I'm sure we could ramble on more, but I'd love to get to the last song so Alicia can bring up what she is talking about, and then we can do some closing statements or bring in anything that we haven't been able to bring in.
Home. I look like a stranger out here no matter where I continue to roam. You walk so aloof, you're ignoring the proof, and you're strangely so innocent. The end seems near, you're so full of fear, and destruction is imminent. But we told you this wouldn't work. I know you knew, and I can see your stupid smirk. They took all the things all the earth brings to us in love and benevolence. In the beginning it was bad, and it's still pretty sad, and you're wielding malevolence. My dagger is stuck in the side of your gut, and it doesn't seem to matter too much. But one day you'll find me standing over your mind with nothing left to clutch. But we told you this wouldn't work. I know you knew, I could see your stupid smirk. Your desire to destroy everything is an effort to rise above it all. Put you on the edge of the cliff that will provide an excellent fall. Your last thought of me, and soon you will see that none of us really own. Your corpse will feed growing things on this earth, and you will die alone. But we told you this wouldn't work. Now we see you've lost your smirk. But we told you this wouldn't work. Now we see you lost your smirk.
What a great frickin' song. Right, Alicia, start us off with your question and your commentary.
All right. Yes. So this is a perfect song for the term that I chose. My last term is anthropocentric, and my question is, why is the anthropocentric worldview dominant in the Euro-Western society? Does Christianity have a role to play in its influence? If it does, why is Christianity and Christians influence this worldview? How is this worldview affecting the land and other living relatives? Cannot talk.
That is such a loaded question.
No.
Well,
Let me marinate on that for a second. Let me look at my own pieces of writing to see if I have anything specific that I put in here. Well, I'm not a Christian. I was not raised with any form of Christianity, but I did grow up with some Catholic influence from where I went to school and from just the general community of being in, a highly Hispanic Catholic area, especially living on a reservation that was literally colonized by the Catholic Church. We have the only Catholic Church that still serves an not only Catholic Church, the only mission that still serves an Indian population. And I do know that I wouldn't say that like Jesus's beliefs influence this anthropocentric worldview, but I would say definitely this idea that the world is meant for the taking of man, that it was created to be destroyed, and that there is this idea of taking and not having to worry about what you destroy because there's this beautiful afterlife waiting for you where none of your belongings and none of this world is going to matter. And I feel like, as nice as the concept of heaven is in many beliefs, we forget about this gift that we've been given by Creator, who we call by many names and know by many stories and beliefs. And I do feel like there is an effect of not necessarily 100% by organized Christianity. That's what I want to say. Organized religion and the power and desire to spread influence, particularly tying back to the discovery doctrine of the Catholic Church, where it literally said, kill anyone who's not a Christian and take their shit, it belongs to you. It's not in those words, obviously, but in that feel and vein of existence. I feel like, without a doubt, there is a Christian aspect that brought on all of this, because Manifest Destiny was powered by this idea that God made us to do this. God chose for us to be these chosen ones, to take over the land. That's what I feel.
Catherine, we're really breaking up the last sentence or so.
This, hold on. Am I good now? Can you hear me? Am I breaking up? No? Hello? Hold on. Can you hear me now? Now can you hear me?
You're really breaking up.
I do.
Oh.
I do believe that. Oh, hey!
Yay!
Did I fake it?
Yeah, it sounds. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Technical difficulties. God damn it. It wouldn't be a podcast without technical guys. Okay, I pretty much I ended off my statement originally just like, yeah, it sucks. I do think that while it was done with good intention in the worst of ways. You know what I mean? The whole saying that the path to hell is paved with good intention, very much how I feel.
I think if I could super quickly add, or actually, Alicia, I know you wanted to go ahead and answer this as well. I'm okay with going last.
You sure?
Yes.
I just wanted to add my own perspective as someone that grew up in a pretty Catholic and Protestant area, that the view of a lot of Catholics, or I would say Christianity-based people, is that this earth doesn't really matter as long as you don't sin. Well, you can sin, but you don't. As long as you do good in the eyes of God, you will go to heaven and you will no longer have to worry about your living planet. And so a lot of people assume that this planet doesn't matter. This is just the place we stay for a very brief moment of our existence. And we don't have to do anything for it. which I believe is a very contradictory opinion, because I feel like this is a creation that, if you do believe in God, you believe that is a creation that will serve future generations of people. It's just not you. I think that's a very, I don't know, anti-Christian. I would say anti-Christian to just think of yourself and in your lifetime, to think that you're the only thing that matters and nothing else before or after even matters. I think it does really affect how anthropocentric our life and society is in America. We're just not even thinking about other living relatives, the plants, how we're killing off the soil that feeds the plants and then the animals. It's destroying everything, and I think it basically just, if we don't stop, we're gonna have a barren land, like how Great Deal mentions. Your intent was to destroy everything, and hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully that desire to destroy everything doesn't happen.
I agree.
No, I agree. I think both of you summed it up so incredibly well. But I would really love for us to kind of revisit what we discussed in our second podcast, I believe. How we were discussing the teachings kind of Christianity and then with indigenous culture, and how a lot of Christian beliefs are like, oh, it's a sign from a higher power for us to do A, B, and C, versus with indigenous beliefs, it's like, okay, this is something that's like a natural occurrence. Like, this is more scientific based. And I think with that, a lot of the way that everything is approached is directly dependent on religious aspects, which is totally fine. Like, people live their lives because of their religious backgrounds. But I think the one thing that I really wanted to say as well is, Alicia, I love how you pointed out that if you are a Christian, you should care about the earth. And I think that's something that's so incredibly important, because if we're talking about everything being God's children, then the biggest child is the earth. The one who's most important is the earth. That's the one who's holding everything else. And we should cherish that, and we should keep it safe for as long as we can for all of the other children to come. And regarding like how all the information is spread conceptually, Catherine, I completely agree with you. Like, one of the biggest things, because I grew up Christian as well, is to spread the word of the gospel and to teach God's word and all of that to different people who may not be aware of it. There is nothing wrong about spreading information, but the way in which it was done, that was the worst thing that could have happened, because it completely misconstrued and twisted around something that wasn't said in a negative aspect into, I'm going to completely wipe out this people's culture, their background, their land, what they do, what they eat, what they say. I'm going to completely change it. And if that's not enough, I'm going to target their children, because the children are the most important foundation of this society, of this people, and they're the easiest to target. And the fact that we've discussed this as well is so many, most, if not all, indigenous teachings are verbal. They're passed down from person to person. There's no way to really document them. If you take away one child, if you take away one elder, it completely skews with the effect of how that information is transferred and how that information is taught. And there's so many different elements that go into stake as we're talking that's such a difficult word to say, anthropomorphic ways of thinking. And yes, Christianity does have a direct impact to it, but unfortunately not in the way that it should have, in the love thy neighbor aspect and the protect God's children aspect.
I want to build on that just a little more. I know in our
Catherine, no.
just real quick, I need a
there we go.
closing statement. It's a closing statement. In our class, one of our classmates made a comment that was like, what would Jesus do? I don't think Jesus would be okay with the way that we're killing the land. And I think the Bible literally says, be fruitful and multiply. Where the fuck are your kids gonna go if you don't protect the planet they're living on? How the fuck are your kids going to follow the rules of the Bible and work hard and have children and be fruitful and multiply if there's no fucking way for them to survive? And I feel like in this anthropocentric worldview that's been forced upon us, we have forgotten to be a good neighbor. To be a good neighbor to our animals, to be a good neighbor to our plants, to be a good neighbor to the rocks even. And I think in all of Greg Deal's album, there is this cry to be better. And philosophically, I think being better is being a bad Indian, being a bad Hispanic, being a bad white person, in the sense of that's bad. Why are you not following the specific squares and boxes we want you in? And so I'm proud to be a bad Indian. And that's what I'm going to end it on.
Okay. Well, I'd just like to do my closing statement. Basically, you guys were great. And Professor, this is probably the last video you're gonna watch. If you don't, stick it in for our next videos. So, I would just like to say thank you, Professor, for all the teachings that you showed us and all the material that you showed me. I did not know about most of this material, and it opened me up to a lot of learning about different perspectives and learning more about something that is not actively taught and actively promoted. So I would like to thank you for that.
There's so many things that I want to say and so many things that I'm grateful for. First off, I'm grateful for my amazing rage team, my amazing rage group, because I never would have thought I would have had such a safe space to discuss something that's so new to me.
Mm-hmm.
And to get so much insight and so much love and so much knowledge from so many different people. And so I wanted to thank you two that are here right now, and Alyssa, I'll put her things in the chat as well. But also to our professor for having this class, for having us this option for us to be able to discuss in such an amazing and powerful setting. And even more so, thank you for the knowledge, for helping me deconstruct some of my ways of thinking that I have had, intentionally or unintentionally, the way that everything was set forth in my brain, and for having me realize my new passion point and to be able to pursue this as a minor as well. But just thank you for everything. Thank you for all the knowledge. Thank you for the skill set. And I'm just so appreciative and grateful that I was able to meet you two, but also you three. Or four, including Professor.
What a beautiful way to end this podcast. And Professor, you better listen to this whole thing and subscribe to the channel, because we only have one subscriber, and this is me.
No, I subscribe.
You? Then we might have 2 subscribers.
I need to do it.
All right.
I keep on forgetting.
Right? I'm so happy. And this is the end of our academic season of Wichuchum, Nanwikdom, Paishikdom, Penyamingwa, and look forward to some active fucking chaos when we have no reins, no shackles, just 4 gals causing massive chaos. And honestly, I'm gonna look forward to it. Bye.
Hey, everybody.